gesture. Well, it doesn't stop.
Past few times, I think. Yeah. It's almost like we're not paying the bill or something. It's cold.
Geothermal.
Our RGO is great.
Not hard. I realize that. All right.
Okay.
Mike, will you take the pledge?
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
David?
And would you remain standing for a moment of silence, speak during the holiday season, all of those around the world who are less fortunate than we are. Thank you.
Thank you. As usual, Zoom public is asked to remain muted during the meeting when the board is talking. Zoom public, raise your hand if you've got a comment. And we're called to order. All right, Chairman's report. First of all, the board met in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss legal matters. I also want to say I attended the tree lighting over the weekend. It was excellent, as usual. Many thanks to the Public Works Department and Mark Miller, and certainly to Jason and Jessica for setting up the all the entertainment. It was great, as usual. The second thing I want to say is Friday at 4 o'clock, we have the opening of the small pocket park down in Milltown. Anybody and everybody who wants to attend is very welcome. We have no emergency services reports tonight. We do have a public hearing. And who's going to handle this, Derek? You or Mark?
I will hand it over to Mark if there's.
Thank you.
Nobody else.
We're ready?
Yes.
Carrie, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've got a hearing that we advertised, a conditional use hearing for this evening. The applicant has requested a continuance from tonight's hearing, but because we advertised it, I'm going to open the hearing, explain the application, enter some exhibits into the record, and then continue it until the next regular meeting of the board in January. So we're here on the application of Timber Mill LLC for conditional use approval on the property located at 301 Reservoir Road. The applicant is seeking approval to allow for the residential conversion of a designated historic resource into a dwelling unit, to permit additional development on a property on which a historic resource is located, and to permit a property on which a historic resource is located to be subdivided for additional development. The property is located in the R2 residential zoning district and is proposed to be subdivided into 5 lots, with 1 lot to contain an existing single-family dwelling, 1 lot to contain an existing barn converted into a single-family dwelling, and with 3 additional lots, each to contain a single-family dwelling. I'm going to enter into the record some exhibits on behalf of the board. The first exhibit, Exhibit B1, is the application of Timber Mill LLC. The application includes a historic resource impact study. B2 is the public notice for tonight's hearing. B3 is the proof of publication of that public notice in the Daily Local News, which took place on November 21st and November 28th. Exhibit B4 is the zoning officer's letter. It was sent to property owners within 1,000 feet of the applicant's property. And Exhibit B5 is the proof of posting of the property by the zoning officer. These are all the required notification exhibits. I'm going to put these in the record tonight. We've got some other exhibits, memorandum from the Planning Commission. When we reopen the hearing and in January, we'll put those in the record. And tonight, I would explain that individuals have the ability to be a party to the hearing, but I would suggest tonight that we continue the hearing and then allow for that discussion on January 16th. So we'll hold off on that for tonight. When the board reopens the record on the 16th, we'll ask if anyone would like to be made a party. So with that, we would continue the hearing until the regularly scheduled meeting of the board on January 16th at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions from the board?
None.
Anybody in the audience or in Zoom? Not hearing any, then we will continue
Thank
the
you.
meeting. Thank you.
That was quick, Karen.
Yeah. All right, we have no financial report tonight, and that reminds me to mention that we will not have a meeting 2 weeks from now because of the holiday.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the November 14th meeting.
Second.
I just have one correction. Eric Meyer was there. So we'll just add his name to the minutes.
Oh, well, I thought they put your name on automatically, Eric. Good, good.
He gets the attendance award for that year.
Any questions about the minutes? Hearing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the receipts and approve the expenditures as presented in the expenditure register and as summarized in the treasurer's report.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Comments from the board? Questions? None? All right, that's unusual. Any questions in the room? Questions on Zoom? Hearing none, I'll call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. We don't have any old business, so under new business, the proposed 2024 preliminary budget.
Or are we going to do the treasurer's report first?
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Need you to sign off.
Oh, I think there was a motion.
There was a motion and a second, and we voted.
Oh, you did that? Oh.
Keep up, man.
We didn't.
He's probably confused.
Do you want me to ask Dave? Dave, since you're asking, I do have a question. Sorry, since he brought it up, I was going to call him afterwards, but I saw that we removed 5 trees from Schoolhouse Lane I'm assuming for the pocket park. Where did we use funds for that general fund? Okay, thanks. Since you wanted a question, that was the only one I had. So.
Is there, Dave, pardon us, is there anything in the treasurer's report that you wanted to point out?
That's a great point. I did want to say that we had a tiny bit from the ARPA fund, about $500 for engineering, closing out this Hershey Mill Sewer Estates project. And we are in full effect with the Infrastructure Sustainability Fund. We're paying all of the Bowtree Pond 1 rehabilitation from that. And then we will get reimbursed $176,000 for the grant that we got for LSA last year. Capital Reserve Fund, we got a replacement plow. Everything else is pretty much insurance, tree removal, road striping, and other things. The road striping went well. We had a couple of residents that weren't terribly happy, but everybody's not always happy.
That's a very passionate word.
It's good if we get over 50%. All right, thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
No old business, new business then, the proposed budget. We're putting Dave back to work again?
Very minimal. There are basically almost zero changes to the proposed budget to what would be the approved budget based on the board's decision and sign off. What we did have was an additional capital improvement plan increase of $50,000 per year going out from 26 to 28 at Milltown Dam Park project. So a commitment from the board to additionally go out and do more plantings, possibly do more trails, things like that, We don't have a plan of action yet, so it's more of a placeholder. Also, the question about the futurist budget for the Bowtree Pond, I never put it in a single futurist line, so it is its own professional services under the Park and Rec, which will come to the board in due time for approval. As far as it's $13,360 and change, something like that, and it's going to be less than that, but we need to get DEP or PennDOT as well as a speed study done. I need information back from the WeGo chief about accidents in the area, because we're looking at the entire intersection from not just Paoli Pike, but just past where the blacksmith shop is, all the way up to that intersection by New Kent, and then all the way to the second Bowtree entrance, to see how many things have gone wrong and how the different speeds might be influencing things there. We want to see long-term what the cost might be to do a path down to connect to the Paoli Pike Trail, as well as are there speed issues right now currently that we should be addressing. So all of that is in the mix, and I feel pretty confident it would be much less than $13,000. Other than that, there really weren't any changes.
Then if no one has any questions, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we pass the proposed 2024 budget. I don't know if there's anything else specific in regards to the motion that needs to be made, but
I'll second that.
All right. Comments from the board on the budget?
just want to thank David and Derek and everyone else for their hard work.
No, I appreciate Dave's work on this. It's a tough, as I always say, it's a tough 4 or 5 months for him. I mean, he works on it all year, but particularly after Labor Day, it's nonstop. So thank you, Dave, as always.
You bet. And
Agreed.
thank you.
Dave, I have one question. I just
Yes.
want to make sure that the public is aware. We had on page 7 under the SBCA contract, we have a huge increase in that budget item, that particular budget line. So it's going to be $30,600 is the proposed
My
budget.
estimate based on year-to-date September with the new cost structure in the contract that would be coming up.
What's the base that they're expecting us to, what is the total cost of the base of the contract without the additional strays that are picked up? Do you have that number? I've forgotten what that number is.
I might have that, Michelle.
I've forgotten off the top of my head, and I want to say it was like 24 grand or something like that.
Yeah, that's probably
something in that
I think
range.
that's what
My computer froze, but I think
Oh, good.
I mean,
That's
just
right.
the base fees without
The base
pickup,
fee is without,
it's now would be
just the monthly plus the annual.
Yeah.
There was no monthly fee before,
right?
and the annual fee increased a percentage, and then they added a monthly fee in addition to any strays or animals brought in.
Okay.
So,
And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is if you can point out how much more the police, the WeGo MMO cost us this year over what we expected it to be,
yes,
approximately?
we didn't expect any real change in the MMO, and it really came up about $640,000 higher. So that's why the public safety budget went up about 11%, whereas the overall East Goshen Township budget, which is building, staff, all the services that we do, went at 1.6%. And cost of living increase projected for the COLA for Social Security for December 2023 is 3.2. So we're half that.
Right.
Dave, if you could give some perspective on that 640. I mean, when you hear the MMO, that's the minimal municipal obligation for pension, which all municipalities have when they've got a commitment for either the employees or, in this case, the police union, et cetera. So the minimum municipal obligation is comes out of the state essentially to craft that through the actuarials. But the $640,000 increase for this next year, as way of perspective, what was off the top of your head, do you recall what the MMO increase was for last year for the police?
I don't, but I do have it.
And just for,
But it was a dramatic increase, so I'd be willing to bet it
I'd
maybe
be
gone up
surprised.
100,000 last year, and
I'd be surprised if it was less than 10%. Yeah, less than 100,000
so
easily.
big number.
and just for clarity, those pension calculations are done basically using actuarial information from 2 years as far as the stock market performance. So what you're seeing is a lag of the poor performance 2 years ago impacting the funding necessary for this year. And then that year will drop off and a year will add on for next year's calculation from MMO, number one. Number two is that those numbers are actually calculated based on the actual ages of the people covered, and this is the police pension. So it would include issues like drop calculations and people who may start drawing on those funds going forward. So that all gets in the mix. And everyone might remember that about a year and a half ago, I made a public comment in one of the board meetings that we might expect this pension to go up because of the stock market performance. So I didn't know the amount, but
you didn't have your crystal ball that night. The only other the only other question I have for you is because I can't find it off the top of my fingertips here. We do have, what do we have for the snow removal budget this year? Do we have anything set aside specifically for snow removal? I'm hearing it's gonna be a bad year, and I just want to make sure. I know that we already have
I did cut
warehouse.
it, so we may run into a certain situation we've run into
So
before.
it'll be you this next year.
I will be the one.
Who cut
Yes,
that budget.
I will be the go.
Well, then maybe Dave will be the reason why we don't get
I
snow
will
this
give
year.
you my salt shaker of salt.
I will be my friends. Yeah.
And for the record, the price of salt has gone down. It's the only thing that's gone down.
it'll be the fault of
Maybe that's because they're sequestering your carbon dioxide.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dave,
Richard
rather than spend money on salt now and have salt in the barn, which we have, we're better off having the money and getting the interest on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just didn't.
Yep.
know.
It's probably close
Especially
right about
now,
now.
4 or 5% interest.
Did we pay
Alright,
off our
I'm good with not knowing what the snowplow budget is.
did we pay off the police building principal?
Yes, this is the final year of paying off the WeGo police principal. West Town, excuse me, redid that 2 years ago, I believe, as soon as I came on, and it was basically the same amount of money, but accelerated the time frame. And so now we are done with that piece. So even with that $100,000 drop off, we are still 11% in public services over 2023.
Gee, now that's paid off. You can get a new home video on that.
All right, any questions from the room about the budget?
I do have one let me ask.
Oh, well, go ahead.
Okay.
You're up.
Dave,
Yes.
and this is really a repeat, I think. Would you explain again the interfund transfers? And specifically, as I see it, under the revenue side for the interfund transfers, we've got 629,000. But under the expense of the interfund transfers, we have 26K. And in parentheses, I have CapEx funding. Where's the CapEx funding come? And you've explained this before. Will you explain that again?
Certainly, that's great. Good point, Mike, especially with new supervisors coming on board. So in the revenue side, an interfund transfer is a revenue is going to be recharges, which are done every quarter, and those are for sewer, refuse, the two enterprise funds, as well as the municipal authority. There's administrative costs, insurance, work that Public Works does to assist the sewer instead of hiring third-party venues. So those costs are borne by those funds, which are paid by sewer or refuse fees. So those enterprise funds are by themselves paid for 100%, which is why rates go up as costs increase, whether it's our costs or third-party costs. Now, luckily here in East Goshen, we've got a great public works department. We've got a very affordable and good sewer operator, and everybody's on top of everything. So we have items on the shelf and we are never behind. We don't have to bypass pump because we've got something to replace the pump when it goes. There's a lot of forethought involved in that. Now, part of that too is, so we'll get all that revenue and it's done quarterly. And the reason why it's increasing when you look year over year is the sewer plant is aging. It's going to hit its about 30-year renewal close to 2030. As part of that, I've taken on kind of like a capital reserve fund depreciation fixed asset look at what does it look like in 10 years and what's going to be going. And as part of that, how do we fund it now so we don't have to sell to Aqua and be at the behest of somebody who needs to make a 10% return on investment. We make zero. We just pass on the fees that we need. So I understand that it's a burden sometimes to go from X dollar to X dollar, but I mean, that's what keeps us sustainable for the future. But all of those go into the revenue. Then we've got the expense, which is going to be basically just taking from the general fund into capital fund on a regular basis. We always do this. We have a fixed asset schedule. So as items get depreciated over time, we know how much we paid for them. We allocate that over X amount of years of useful life. We take those dollars and spread it out amongst the life of it. And per department, we will put those dollars back in to the capital reserve fund so that it's completely self-funded by the general fund. We have over $5 million right now. We're in a good spot. We should get nearly 400,000 back once the Hershey Mill Dam grant comes back in. But that's why you use capital reserve primarily for capital projects, which are building, equipment. That's really all you really do with it.
And I'll point out to the public that we're one of the few townships that actually depreciates assets, capital assets, and budgets so that when we need a new, very expensive dump truck, we have the money set aside. We don't have to sit here and go, where are we going to get $150,000 to buy a new dump truck? We've depreciated that over its useful life, and we have the cash when that needs to be done. And that's why we have a AAA Moody's rating. One of the reasons is that the board, through the years, has been very smart about setting up that level.
Yeah, David, they really comment on the internal financial policies and board recommendations through the years, setting up police trust. There's a number of things that Moody's and Kroll both really harp on as far as another thing that drives the rating, but they also the increase in tax millage that showed forethought and understanding that costs have increased. Instead of getting behind the ball and losing our balances, we're keeping up.
And to kind of pick specifically what Dave was saying, if you look under the general fund, under the expense categories, the basic general categories, you won't see one specifically. The capital reserve fund is funded by the general fund. It for the most part, it's not self-funded. It has to, the mother, if you will, is the general fund. And you won't see under the expenses a specific line that says capital reserve funding, because as Dave explained, all of those figures are built into the various departments for those expenditures that are anticipated, and they show up later on in the actual capital reserve budget where the expenses are for various fleet replacements, building facility improvements, etc.
Yeah, so towards the end of December, I'll re-up the fixed asset schedule. I'll do an analysis on what needs to change cost-wise based on inflation. We will look at the life cycle, whether things are on the same life cycle, what's come in, what's gone out. Everything gets updated, and then we look at it by department. So we've got Public Works new, Public Works replacement. You have Township Building new, Township Building replacement. At this point, we're pretty much almost on all replacement. So it's windows, doors, vehicles, things like that. Those are the primary items, and those get spread out throughout the years. And as I adjust it, we'll see It's typically between $400,000 to $500,000 we need to put away from the general fund every year into the capital fund to keep it sustainable. And that way we never get behind the 8 ball.
And just two other comments to share. One, if we look at Dave's projection for the year end 23, it's showing a net result from operations projected at the moment, awaiting the 12/31 numbers for the final actual. But it's showing a net result from operations of a surplus this year of about $325,000. And you recall, of course, we all do, we're paying more taxes now with the tax increase this past year that was imposed for this year. That's a revenue, that the $500,000 increase is a revenue enhancement of about $750,000 to $800,000.
Yep.
So had that not occurred, we'd probably be looking at a projected deficit right now for the end of the year of anywhere between $400,000 and $500,000.
Minimum. Yep.
Yeah. And then the other comment I wanted to share is that in acting on the final budget for 24 tonight, this includes not just the general fund, but all of the funds: sewer, capital, refuse, recycling, etc. So this is a multiple budget. Local governments use a multi-fund system. Thanks.
Anybody else? Anybody in the room?
Well, it's also interesting from what Mike said, this isn't just a financial budget. It's not just an internal staff budget. This is a budget that the entire township is going to be held to. So it's the board, it's input from every department head, it's input from board members individually. So, we start this process really early, and that's part of what we do. And it's looking at every line item, digging in, what can be cut, what can't be cut. I mean, this is an ongoing process, but just to let everybody know, we're always looking, and nobody wants taxes to go up. So
thanks, Dave. A lot of good work in it. Motion's there and seconded.
We are again going to ask if there's anyone in the room that wants to comment, or anybody on Zoom that wants to comment. I don't see anything, so I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Oh, reluctant aye.
I'm a no. Maybe a reluctant no. And I've been challenged to give my reasons, so I'll give them. And I'll give them very quickly because I don't want to get into an argument. And I don't want to disrespect other members of the board who I know act in good faith. However, I believe a year ago we had a crowded room and we put a tax increase in. And at the time, I was frustrated. I voted against it, but I knew that that tax increase was said to push out the day when we were in trouble, which would be our revenues not meeting our expenses and another big tax increase needed. The problem I have with this budget is that it uses up that whole tax increase from last year. And at some point, unless we really start to cut budgets next year, at some point we'll have to increase taxes again. As a retiree and someone on a fixed income, I don't like taxes and I don't want to increase them. So I am reluctantly and respectfully voting no. Go ahead. Think you want to hit me?
Fixed income, who fixed it?
Mine I had to retire. That's all I wanted to say. And I'm a reluctant no, but I am a no.
And the reason I'm a reluctant yes is because I'm with John in that regard as well. We used up all of our tax increase, and we're looking at having to raise taxes sooner to meet expenses. So something's got to give.
John, I promise I won't make this a debate, just something for further discussion. Instead of last year when we were faced with the higher increase of a millage, I know Dave has planned out smaller increases for the millage. I think last year our $500,000 increase resulted in about $113 a household an increase. Average, yeah. So I'm hoping if, God forbid, we do have to raise taxes because everything goes up in the future, maybe we can do smaller increases of 1/10 of a mil or something like that, rather than hit everyone at one time, like John's saying on fixed income. So just something I know you're thinking about, but
I'll remind everybody that that tax increase occurred after 19 years of no tax increase. So, so maybe small increments would be less painful rather than waiting another 19 years to hit you with another tax increase.
And
Yeah,
and
to your point, Cody.
the only comment that I would have is that, yeah, I did vote based upon the 10-year projection last year, and it seems to have been a good decision at the time, this time last year, to increase the millage, to think forward. But I would challenge the board for next year, the seated members now and the new members, to look at the budget and see if there are responsible ways to decrease the expenditure side of the budget. We've looked very closely. We get surprises like the MMO for the police this year. Emergency services are driving most of the budget increase this year, if you look at the detail of the numbers. So I would challenge the board for next year to see if you can do something to reduce the expenditures. I think the township, all things considered, it's a $13 million budget, but it's a clean budget. There's not, it's to find waste in there, short of cutting staff, cutting services, that many of them are either valued or essential, is a very difficult challenge. Yeah, I'll challenge the board. I'll challenge Peter and Barbara and my colleagues here today to see if we can do that. And I'll certainly be here to support them if they're reasonable.
And I'll make a final comment that when Mike and I came on board, what we called a balanced budget at the time was we spent what we needed to spend. And at the end of the year, we had a deficit. And then we just tapped into the surplus to pay the deficit. And that's what we called a balanced budget. And Mike and I said, that's not a balanced budget. Balanced budget is where expenses match revenue. And we were the first group to insist that we have a true balanced budget in East Goshen Township. So,
and not beginning to drain down your fund balance, which is, like any of our households, our savings account. And it's easy to spend than it is to save. So yeah, that's a big challenge, and I think you guys will see that as you really dig in these next years ahead, Barbara and Peter.
And we've done that since my tenure here and getting that feedback. This year is a little bit different with the Thornberry issue contract for service from WeGo. So that is the only reason why we have an actual fund transfer from existing balance. Otherwise, we would be a zero net balance.
All right. Any other comment? All right. The matter is closed then. We already have a 4-1 vote. Let's move on. Derek, I think it's up to you on the standing issues and projects.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Milltown Dam project that is underway right now over there in the Milltown Dam, and they have started construction. They are looking at end of April completion date. Again, the smaller scale project of just the dam breaching. Well, not total breaching, just dam lowering, and then there'll be some strawing and seeding afterwards, but looking at an April completion date. The Milltown Pocket Park is completed, as you said, and that dedication will be this Friday. Was it 4 o'clock? So that is a closing matter. I will probably take that one off after this meeting of the standing issues. And Bowtree Pond, I actually just gave the contractor go ahead to start the dredging, and he is anticipated to start dredging within the next 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We had engineering feedback and things, and then the actual project manager who's going to be doing the dredging came on site, and it was a little bit different than we had anticipated.
How so?
The instructions that were given were not necessarily what they would have done. So Public Works went and did what the project manager said we should be doing.
Oh.
So.
Did that complicate things, or? change the direction of anything?
No, they rolled right with it and just got it done.
It's fine now.
Yeah.
Didn't change the amount of excavation.
No,
It's,
no.
change volume or anything like that anticipated.
No.
Okay. All right. Any other comment? Anything from the room? Okay.
I have a quick question about the December 19th meeting, Mr. Chairman, under any other matter. Is there a need to have that meeting, or is that something that we can consider?
As far as I'm concerned, with the budget passed, I don't think we need a meeting on the 19th. What do you guys think?
No, there's nothing I need passed. The conditional uses continue to January 16th. The budget is the only thing legally I need passed before December 31st, so it's definitely up to you all.
Gives you a little more time to prep for the organization.
Yeah, which I'd like to bring up is usually it is the first Monday of January is reorganization. Reorganization meeting is actually the first Tuesday this year, January 2nd, because Monday is a holiday on New Year's Day. So that's just to clarify that for the public.
Will that be Tuesday at 6?
Tuesday at 6 p.m. Yes.
For us, that's a standard Tuesday meeting.
Yeah,
it's mostly
I know it's unusual, but
you can cover other business
other than the time.
You can, yeah.
So then it sounds like we are not going to necessarily need that December 19th meeting.
No.
Okay.
Well, that's great. Okay.
Yeah. Merry Christmas
Thank
to
you.
everyone. Under any other matter, I'll start. I want to thank David Chewy and Michael Lynch for their service to the township and to the residents of the township. At times we've disagreed, but it's always been civil. And I think in the long run, we've got the job done.
Yeah.
So thank you both.
And thank you guys.
And I'll sit back.
I wish to also extend my gratitude. I did some numbers, and the two of you have attended a lot of meetings.
Couple hundred.
About 220 minimum. And that's minimum. That doesn't count all of the
Sleepovers.
Yeah, right. And we're looking at well over 500 hours of meeting times. And that doesn't include executive session. It doesn't include the time that you spent in the building going over information with staff. It doesn't count time that you were reading packets. That doesn't count time that you were out with Mark and exploring the township with Public Works and codes and under own. There are so many hours that we spend in this position that you really can't quantify it unless you're keeping really close track. I kept really close track for the first 6 months, then I gave up because it was
taking up too much time.
It was just I kept forgetting to enter things. And but the two of you have spent so much of your time and efforts, and it's so much appreciated. So for that, the township should be, all of our residents should be very grateful. I didn't think to add up Carmen's time or Marty's time, good grief. And you know, it's just, it is quite it's truly public service. It really is public service commitment. So thank you very much for all of your
and
service.
back to you guys too. Same thing. I mean, you're in here for 6 years as well, starting out, and it's the same commitment. You guys, we've all done that together.
Cody?
David and Mike, thank you for your service. Thank you for your patience with me during my first 12 months.
Hey, your grasshopper is getting to become a master.
No, I appreciate both of your perspectives. I think they'll be missed on the board, but please, I know if you want to, you're always welcome back. You'll probably get phone calls from me still in regards to your perspectives and your knowledge. I just appreciate both your time that you dedicated to township residents. I'm very lucky. So thank you.
I'd like to read something that is a nice segue. I promised John it'll be relatively short. I figured I kind of earned it, just a couple minutes anyway. So I'll read this for posterity. So
well, before you start, this could have been a record meeting.
Yeah, we did all right. I mean, no, you know, we'll be out of here now by at least 8:30. I mean, that's
9 o'clock probably.
Yeah. So here it is. It said, I titled this "A Pleasure to Serve." In a past life, I recall numerous times with a former colleague, the highly regarded and honorable former Westchester Borough Police Chief Scott Bond, and usually following a particularly tedious or exaggerated no matter or situation, him saying with a bit of Ryan twinkle in his eyes, "A pleasure to serve." But after we exhaled, we both knew and know to this day, it is a pleasure to serve and be of service in local government. And so for this 21st century journeyman, and I share this with David too, because I think he will echo these thoughts as well. So for a 21st century couple of journeymen, it's been an honorable investment with gratitude to be of public service to the outstanding community of East Goshen Township, Chester County. No footnotes or asterisks. No hyperbole here. East Goshen is a premier community and local government. And if you have any doubts, you don't have to go far to experience this reality. And as I exit now, I will remain a fortunate resident. Neither a truism nor cliche, and attributed to Thomas Jefferson, a government closest to the people serves the people best. A corollary, some may like, from Henry David Thoreau, is that government is best that governs the least. I happen to like both. Here are just a few of my thoughts upon exit from my colleagues and fellow residents. I have many more, but you might have to find me on a trail or park bench to pry them from me. The future of community is not ours to ignore, neither as a governing body nor as a citizen. Individual voices should be respected and heard, but decisions must be grounded upon the entire community, present and future. Respect and invest in the township staff. They are the mainspring and ballast of local government, management, operations, services, and continuity. Continue to invest in infrastructure to ensure today is prepared for tomorrow. Continue to engage the entire community of residents. Keep politics out of local government. It often can distract or distort from public service. Maintain the hallmark tenets of local government: transparent, accessible, and accountable. And now my Irish exit. Thanks and all the best. And in fact, it truly has been a pleasure and a civic duty to serve. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Mike. David, I'm sure you're going to say something.
You can read my farewell in the upcoming newsletter. But I would echo Mike's. It's been a privilege to serve the township. I've made some great friends, residents, staff people, fellow board members, volunteers. Truly is a unique community, and I was glad to be part of it.
Yeah, right with you. Well, thank you.
Thanks, man.
We're to number 13, public comment. Is there any comment from the public? All right, I don't hear any. There are no liaison reports that I'm aware of anyway, or correspondence.
Before I make my motion to adjourn, I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday and Christmas season. Thank you, David and Mike, and I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that and echo Cody's thoughts.
All the best. Good holidays, everybody.
All right, all in favor, say
Aye.
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 We're done.
Thank you. Happy New Year.